Hey YouTube, Workout Ishi here again with another deck. This one is a green Landfall deck. It's a deck based primarily around mana ramping up to 6 mana and then pulling off one of the big landfallers for green. It's a mono green deck, so there aren't any fetch lands in it. Instead, I use Terramorphic Expanse, which is a little bit cheaper, and it doesn't cost me a life every time I use one. So, without further ado, this is Mono Green Landfall. First card, Rampaging Ballast. I really want to get at least one more copy of this, but it's mythic, so it's kind of hard to get. It's got Trample, it's 6/6, and it costs 6. In addition, its landfall effect puts into play one beast token 4/4 every time a land comes into play, so it's really nice. 2 Baloth Woodcrasher. These guys are 6 cost 4/4s, which isn't quite as good as Rampaging Ballast, but pretty good still. Gets a plus 4/4 and trample every time a land comes into play, so he can get pretty big. Next is the weaker version of Woodcrasher Baloth, which is the Territorial Baloth. Every time a land comes into play, he gets plus 2/2. He's a 5 cost for 4/4, makes him about on par. This guy can get pretty big pretty quickly. Not the ideal, but still one of the better cards in the deck. You really want one of the other ballasts, but this guy comes in handy. 2 Oracle of Moldiah. If you're running a deck based around Landfall, you probably already know what this card is. It allows you to play an additional land every turn. You play with the top card of your deck revealed, which gives you an advantage in that you can look ahead to see what you want to do, and it gives you the ability to, if your top card is a land, play it, which thins out the deck and increases landfall. So, next, 2 Timber Larva. These guys are amazing. They swing for just 4. You can swing in for as much as 20. For each forest you control, these guys get a +1/+1 while they're attacking. So, 3 Borderlands Rangers. 3 cost, 2/2, searches for a basic land and adds it to your hand. Great for increasing landfall. 3 Grazing Gladeheart. Gain 2 life every time you play a land. Really helps early game to stay alive, because this deck does have kind of a late start, but it's a strong finisher. So, 2 Frontier Guide. 4 cost to search it. Its effect is 4 cost and tap to search out a land and put it into play. Great for increasing landfall. Once again, that's what most of the cards in the deck are for. 4 Llanowar Elves. Great way to increase mana early game. Makes for a second turn Kalani with a counter on it, so it's a really useful card. Garruk Wild Speaker. Because of his effects, he is quite possibly the best planeswalker for this deck. His +1 effect gives more mana for the turn because you untap 2 lands. His -1 effect puts into play a 3/3 beast. Not really the greatest effect in the world, but can be helpful if you need a blocker. And then his -4 effect, which is probably going to be the one you use the most in this deck, gives all of your creatures +3/3 and trample, so it's essentially an overrun, which is a little bit cheaper. Next you have 2 Overrun. Same thing as Garuk, plus 3/3 and trample to all creatures you control until end of turn. Primal Bellow, plus it's an instant, gives target creature plus 1/1 and for each forest you control. So, great card. It's essentially giant growth on crack. For Haro, another great card for Landfall deck. If you are playing a deck with green and aren't playing Haro, you probably don't know what you're doing. It's a 3-cost card, searches 2 lands in return for sacrificing a land. It's an instant, so it can be played during your opponent's turn, during their end of turn, which means you can sack it for 2 lands. Beastmaster Ascension, great card. Gets its counters really quickly in this deck because you have so many cards at that late game phase. Whenever a creature attacks, it gets a counter. Once it has 7 or more counters, all creatures you control get +5/+5, which is really helpful late game. Kalani Hard Expedition. Kalani Hard Expedition has a landfall effect which gains a counter. Once it has 3 counters, you can sack it for 2 lands into play tapped. Amazing landfall effect. And because of the effect sacrificing it, you can activate it during either player's turn. Activate it during end phase to finish off your mana ramp, or sack it during your own turn to improve your finisher. Alright, Terramorphic Expanse. Essentially a nondescript fetch land without the -1 cost. Searches out any basic land. Great just because you're not losing life and it has the same effect. And there's 4 of those in here. Then you've got 18 forests. Once again, I use only the best, the zandikar Extended Art lands. So, now onto the sideboard. 1, Frontier Guide. Great card, as I mentioned earlier. Just in case you need that little extra boost. 3, Expedition Map. If your opponent's shutting down your Kalani Hearts or Haros, this is another great option. Searches for 1 land and adds it to hand. And so, it's only a 1 cost, and you put it into play and then pay 2 and sack it for any land to your hand. And that includes Terramorphic Expanse, which the other searchers don't do. 1 Overrun, just if you need that final turn boost, side in for a 3rd one. Tangle Snap, great alongside an Overrun. I really kind of want 1 or 2 more. 2 cost, creatures that don't have trample don't deal damage that turn. So it's a great way to basically keep your monsters alive. And Turn Timber Basilisk. This guy is one of the weirder landfallers. He has Death Touch, and his landfall effect is that you get to select who blocks it each turn. Which, for 3 cost 2/1, that's a pretty good effect. It's great if your opponent's playing a deck with Exalted or something like that. You can take him out pretty quickly. Three Vines of Bastwood. Great side card if your opponent's playing a lot of removal. Grants your creature Shroud, and if you pay the kicker, +4/4 for the turn. So, great way to overcome stuff like that. and then 2 naturalize. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. So, that is the green Landfall deck. More decks to come. Hope you guys are enjoying the channel so far. And this is Warkaushi signing out.